Good morning and welcome to Rising. Thanks so much for joining us on this Wednesday morning. We've got a little
Thursday. Don't push us back.
Oh my gosh, it's Thursday.
Don't be crazy, Robbie.
Well, that's good news. I did a little bit of time traveling just there.
You did.
I was distracted by this beautiful kind of light peeking through the clouds. Y'all can't see it, but we've got these.
It was so dark yesterday, and Robbie does not like a dreary day. Okay, he's very not sunshine, rainbows, and flowers.
Because I'm so bright and sunshiny.
But he doesn't like dark days.
All right, well, coming up on Rising, the former CDC director was testifying on Capitol Hill yesterday, and things did get a little bit testy.
Plus, FBI Director Kash Patel also got into some heated exchanges with Democratic lawmakers over those Epstein files.
Plus, President Trump has vowed to declare Antifa a terrorist organization. But Lindsey, let's get to your radar. What's on it?
Yeah, let's talk about it today. So former President Barack Obama says the nation is at a, quote, inflection point after the assassination of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. In his first public remarks on the shooting, Obama called Kirk's death a tragedy. Let's take a look.
Regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, what happened to Charlie Kirk was horrific and a tragedy. What happened, as you mentioned, to the state legislators in Minnesota, that is horrific. It is a tragedy.
Now, Obama made those remarks at the Jefferson Educational Society's Global Summit Tuesday night. He argued that America is in the middle of a, quote, political crisis, and went further, noting that the President Trump is fueling divisions with his response to the tragedy. But what stood out to me most was the contrast Obama drew between how presidents respond in moments of national pain. He pointed back to former rivals like George W. Bush, potential president that ran for one, John McCain and Mitt Romney, people who, despite sharp policy differences, understood the assignment when tragedy struck, to unify the country. That reminded me of how Obama himself handled one of the darkest moments of his presidency, the 2015 mass shooting at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Now let's remember, that was a white supremacist who murdered 9 black worshipers in their sanctuary, hoping to ignite a race war. Obama didn't scapegoat political enemies or look for the loudest partisan villain to attack. He just called the shooter what he was, a criminal, and then tried to rally the nation toward unity.
This is not the first time that black churches have been attacked. And we know that hatred across races and faiths pose a particular threat to our democracy and our ideals. The good news is I am confident that the outpouring of unity and strength and fellowship and love across Charleston today, from all races, from all faiths, from all places of worship, indicates the degree to which those old vestiges of hatred can be overcome.
Now that's presidential leadership, setting a tone that calms the country instead of pouring gasoline on an already burning fire. But compare that to how President Trump responded to Kirk's assassination.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals.
Now, Trump played the blame game 2 minutes into a 4-minute speech. He took the tragedy and used it as a political tool, targeting his opponents rather than simply mourning the loss and trying to bring unity. Obama this week called that out.
I've noticed that there's been some confusion, I think, around this lately. And frankly, coming from the White House and some of the other positions of authority that suggest, even before we had determined who the perpetrator of this evil act was, that somehow we're going to identify an enemy.
The former president then suggested that this line of thinking could lead the country down the wrong path.
We're going to identify an enemy. We're going to suggest that somehow that enemy was at fault, and we are then going to use that as a rationale for trying to silence discussion around who we are as a country and what direction we should go.
And that's the bigger point here. Leadership isn't about silencing the debate or vilifying half of the country because they hold different views. It's about making space for the disagreement without justifying violence. Not one Democratic leader on the left wished for Charlie Kirk to die because of his views. Not one. Disagreement with someone's ideology is not the same as endorsing their murder, and suggesting otherwise is not only dishonest, it's dangerous. At the end of the day, presidents set the tone. When tragedy strikes, the job is simple, but it's hard. Comfort the nation, call for unity, and make sure the civil discourse continues. Because blaming political rivals for the act of one violent criminal does not just miss the mark, it leaves the country more divided. And to me, that's not leadership.
Well, look, I appreciate the things Barack Obama said there. I don't disagree with them at all. I don't think the immediate aftermath of a horrific mass shooting should be used as some pretext for political persecution of your enemies. And a lot of what the Trump administration is going to do in response to this, I don't agree.
You have said that, yeah. I want everybody to know that you did say you don't think this is the moment to do that.
But you know, when Obama says not to politicize it, not to blame the rhetoric of your opponents, I just find that to be such a hollow remark, because that has long been the textbook response to tragedies perpetrated by plausibly or discernibly right-wing figures, or assumed to be right-wing figures, by the mainstream media and the Democratic Party and progressive activists. When Gabby Giffords was shot during Barack Obama's presidency in 2012, Democratic representative in Arizona, the response from Democrats, I guess I can't recall precisely what Barack Obama himself said, but the response from Democrats in the mainstream media and progressive activists was overwhelmingly to blame right-wing rhetoric and the Tea Party, even though it turned out the shooter had nothing to do with the right at all.
Can I push back on that? Because I think that the response was to try to go to Congress to push gun laws forward. And that's where discussion and debate... But that's usually the conversation to figure out how gun laws can be pushed forward.
Here's the Guardian from 14 years ago. Gabby Giffords shooting, the Guardian's progressive news website. Gabby Giffords shooting reignites Roe over right-wing rhetoric in U.S. Sarah Palin at center of storm over political vitriol after spree leaves 6 dead. It had nothing to do with Sarah Palin.
That's fine. So Fox News, Newsmax, MSNBC can do what they want. I'm talking about the president. Yeah. That's the clear distinction I'm making. It comes from the top down. The president must lead in this moment and be the leader for the party and show an example. And so what President Obama did during his term was to try to be that example, and the rhetoric still continued on who to point fingers and blame at. But when it's coming from the top, to me, that's problematic, because we're trying to bring the nation together, or at least we need to try. We are at a really contentious point in our nation's history, and it's not the worst of times, and it doesn't need to be the worst of times. And so it starts from the top on trying to bring people together. That's the biggest issue for me, is that, yes, everyone's saying what they want to say. All these people that have podcasts and blogs, I'm not trying to criticize and figure out how to organize all of them. I'm asking for the president to be presidential. Mm-hmm. Isn't that like a fair ask? I think that you should want that from your president as well.
Right, but I just think we're looking back on Obama's own terms with, we're looking at it through rose-tinted glasses to say that there was no division, or that division was not being fostered. It was loftier rhetoric than that which is employed by Donald Trump, but conservatives certainly felt that division was being
This week, Senator Dick Durbin was saying that to characterize MAGA as Nazis is problematic. And on the other side, when Republicans characterize Democrats as the party of murder or evil, that's also extremely problematic. Why can't we agree that those things are not right? That these parties don't cause murder and evil, and these parties are not also Nazis, right? This is like just the basis of my argument right here.
Okay, well, I'm fine to take that, to accept your proposal that not to call enemies Nazis or murderers or whatever it is.
Because the people committing the act are the people with the gun. I mean,
right. I don't think that's helpful, and I also don't know that it is plausibly connected to this shooting or any other shooting, the rhetoric of any. That's actually where I draw the biggest line, is that people's inflammatory rhetoric is asserted without evidence that is at the root of the violence problem we're seeing. And this shooter, to be clear, is has left-wing motivations, clearly, but was probably radicalized by online peer groups rather than the rhetoric of political figures. But we'll still be investigating that for some time to come, I think.
For sure. So up next, the former CDC director was on Capitol Hill to testify before the Senate Health Committee, and things got a little testy, to say the least. We'll be right back.
My tenure as CDC director lasted 29 days. Since my removal, several explanations have been offered: that I told the secretary I would resign, that I was not aligned with the administration priorities, or that I was untrustworthy. None of those reflect what actually happened.
Former CDC head director Susan Monterez giving her side of the story before the Senate Health Committee just weeks after she was ousted from the agency over a reported dispute with Secretary Kennedy about vaccines.
Now, Dr. Monterez went on to describe what she says led her to leaving the agency. Take a listen.
On the morning of August 25th, Secretary Kennedy demanded two things of me that were inconsistent with my oath of office and the ethics required of a public official. He directed me to commit in advance to approving every ACIP recommendation, regardless of the scientific evidence. He also directed me to dismiss career officials responsible for vaccine policy without cause. He said if I was unwilling to do both, I should resign.
Just 2 days after that happened, HHS announced that Monterez would be removed from her post. When asked about the effects of the vaccine skepticism under Secretary Kennedy, Monterez said she had serious concerns.
I believe preventable diseases will return, and I believe that we will have our children harmed for things that we know they do not need to be harmed by. Polio, measles, diphtheria, whooping cough. I worry about the ramifications for those children in illness and in death. I worry about our school systems. I worry about our medical institutions having to take care of sick kids that could have been prevented by effective and safe vaccines. I worry about the future of trust in public health.
Senator Rand Paul pushed back, going toe-to-toe with Dr. Monterez over the recommendations for the COVID and hepatitis B vaccine in infants, calling her out for what he says was her refusal to fire CDC employees who were staunchly opposed to any changes to the vaccine schedule. Take a listen to the exchange.
What is the medical reason for giving a hepatitis B vaccine to a newborn? See, everybody's like blithely going along. We can't change the childhood. You're somehow terrible if you want to change the childhood. We should be discussing what is the childhood vaccine schedule. The burden is upon you and the people you wouldn't fire to prove to us that we need to give our 6-month-old a COVID vaccine and that we need to give our 1-day-old a hepatitis B vaccine.
I actually agree with you, and I was open to the science. I just would not pre-commit to approving all the ACIP recommendations without the science.
Untrue.
That's interesting that she says she agrees with him on that point, as do I, unsurprisingly. This has become a topic of conversation, I know, among a lot of conservative women, or actually MAHA mothers, that movement, about the hepatitis B vaccine in particular, which is often given to one.
Yeah, I had to go through the whole vaccine thing with my 4-year-old.
You probably know more about it than I do, but the question is, do otherwise healthy mothers who are not engaged in the kind of risky behavior that is a cause of hepatitis B, if you don't meet those criteria, why would you necessarily need to give your kid this vaccine? And it was actually nice to hear her say she thinks that's perfectly fine.
And she just said that she doesn't want to go off ideology and she doesn't want to pre-commit to anything that maybe they've discussed, because new research always comes out and vaccine schedules change and things change based on guidance and science and deep research. And so I think that's fair for somebody to say. The most alarming part of this whole entire thing was the fact that she is sitting up there saying one story about why she was let go. RFK is calling her a liar when he's pressed out about it at his hearing. And so there's just two conflating issues. And then he's asking her a question and she's saying, yeah, I agree with you. It's really simple to me to go over the facts and the information from scientists. And so why is that not the baseline? Because what's happening is, since RFK took this office, it's created just chaos and confusion about where the CDC is headed and if we should trust the CDC. And like you said, there are mothers like myself and other mothers who don't have a political foot or, in this race.
Right.
They're just trying to figure out the best way to keep their kids protected when they go to school, prior to them going to school, when they're 1 month old. Like, this is all mothers and families, parents, dads too, on the same page that are really trying to protect children. But then moreover, there's people with longer family histories that are still alive, like grandparents they're trying to protect, school teachers that want to take into consideration CDC's recommendation. But the way that RFK has created an environment of chaos, I think it's making most people who already were skeptical of the CDC, rightfully so because of COVID, now have complete lack of trust in it and not even know who to look to for information.
Yeah, I was a little bit dismayed listening to the hearing. It seemed like, while I'm very supportive of a lot of what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is trying to accomplish, and I'm very supportive of Senator Rand Paul, it sounded like this person was one of the better people you could get in the CDC who was very open to the agenda and to trying different things. She just didn't want to vow to do it a certain way without consulting a variety of, so that seemed okay to me. So I think it's almost I found myself kind of liking her, listening to her. She was not like that stereotype of the close-minded public health bureaucrat person who is just doing everything the experts say without any consideration or discussion. So I'm a little bit dismayed that she's out, to be honest.
She did have like a demeanor that, it seemed as you're watching it as the adult in the room.
Right.
And that's what I think people were looking for.
She said she was open to that perfectly healthy kids don't need the COVID vaccine, which is exactly that is the main thing I was trying to get accomplished from the CDC. Why is it, as a matter of routine, being given out to people without any consideration who are otherwise perfectly healthy? That's not something that is in keeping even with our scientific understanding. And she said she agreed. So that sounded like the best case scenario. And so I'm a little...
And another issue that a lot of people are having is the fact that, like she said, she was in that position for 29 days, and all of the time and energy and money that's wasted on trying to confirm somebody into a position like that, somebody that RFK championed to change his mind, that does not lead people to believe that you are a confident, stable leader when you argue to have somebody in a position and then take them out a month later. It seems knee-jerk reaction, like chaotic, and so, these are organizations that you want to have somebody level-headed, prepared for the authority you're giving them to lead. And so she's up there kind of still confused about it. Like, I'm not going to just say carte blanche on whatever you guys would like to do. I'm going to say yes in advance, which you wouldn't expect anybody who understands science to do, because science always changes. And part of this argument about why we're talking about what vaccines kids should have is because the science and information is changing and more accessible and developing. And so we're like, oh, maybe kids don't need this. Hepatitis is not as, rampant as it used to be. And, this is just, to me, not the path we want to go down as a country, to not understand what the vaccine schedule should be for our kids.
I want open-mindedness, not narrow-mindedness in either direction.
Right.
That's what I want. Next up, the clock is ticking. Republicans and Democrats are preparing for a government shutdown, but who will be to blame for the funding stop? We'll talk about it right after the break.
A government shutdown looms, and time is running out to get a deal done. But some Democrats tell the Hill a shutdown is necessary to send a message to President Trump. So Democratic leadership is rejecting a GOP-led stopgap bill this week. They say the bill was put together with little Democrat input and doesn't extend health care subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. Here's what House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said about the bill.
House Democrats have been clear that we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. That's not a clean continuing resolution. It's a dirty spending bill, and one that is unacceptable.
Now, Senator Chuck Schumer is sending that same message, saying they have an upper hand if the federal funding stops, that Republicans are now in a weaker position than they were earlier this year, and Democrats are more united than ever.
But Dems aren't completely united. Republicans would likely need 8 Democratic Senate votes to push their bill through, and several Democrats tell the Hill the GOP might have 6 at most. Among them is Senator John Fetterman, who recently did post on X saying, "I enthusiastically support extending the ACA tax credits. I'll never vote to shut our government down over that or any other reason." Senate Majority Leader John Thune is preparing for the worst, however, telling reporters this week, "I'm sure you're all asking the question, are we or are we not going to have a Schumer shutdown?" it sounds like from what he's indicating, that very well might happen. I don't know. I would remind Democrats that every time there's a government shutdown, it's the obstinate party that takes the blame for it. Republicans have found this out the hard way. So strategically, I don't know whether it makes... Now, I know their base wants them to obstruct and resist and fight Trump, fight some way. And I guess this is something. It's really the only thing they can do because they don't have any political power. And what will happen is that the government will shut down, and you won't even shut down, Trump will just say like, oh, ICE is in national security or whatever, we're still going to do all the things Trump wants to do. You just shut down the parts of the government he doesn't like. And then eventually it will, it'll resume, and they vote back pay for all the furloughed employees, so it doesn't even save any money. So I'm totally against it because I've learned the hard way that even though government shutdown are that's two of my most favorite words in my most favorite order.
Government and shutdown.
It doesn't actually accomplish my goal of making government smaller.
I learned this week that you and I agree about this for a really different reason. You know what I mean? I don't want it to shut down because I think
you're like
a government
federal
shutdown.
Employees. Oh no, they get a paid holiday, Lindsey. They get
failure.
Back pay every time.
Okay, well, last time I checked, I need my check on Friday. I don't want to wait until December to get my back pay, right? I got a kid, But aside from that, it's just a failure of government to lead. If the government shuts down, it's actually just a failure of them to do their job, whatever party is doing it. So I completely disagree with it. I also think that, when you think about people that are furloughed, maybe people in this economy don't have the means to be furloughed and get that money later, or whatever you're saying that they're going to get it. Military pay being delayed. These are people protecting our country. You don't care about that either. These people should not be on the chopping block of these congressional games that they're playing, and the party's not trying to do this.
You don't support the troops, Robbie, to me? Oh, come on. That's emotional blackmail.
And also, Democrats are risking
employees. They're not entitled to jobs and our money.
Well, saying no, I think, is the biggest part without a bipartisan solution. So I want to hear somebody coming to the table. They're saying, they want to lean into healthcare and talk about how we can extend some of those protections in the Affordable Care Act. Lay them out, be specific, because Republicans are really specific. Okay, this is the Schumer shutdown. Here's what we want to do. We want to, extend these tax credits, whatever they're trying to do. They're really specific all the time. I think that Democrats need to be really specific, get out there, talk to constituents. And you know what? Everyone knows the midterms are getting closer and closer. So the more people do stuff like
Democrats' prospects for it are not improving.
Well, here's the opportunity, right? Strike the iron while it's hot. This is the iron.
The Schumer shutdown, that's the opportunity?
No, people want them to stand up, but stand up for what? People want to hear, what are you standing up for?
I don't know that people want them to stand up. Democrats want
No, you said the party wants... The party has complained that they get bulldozed and steamrolled all the time.
Yeah.
That's been a complaint within the party.
They're so weak and feckless, pathetic.
I'm trying to have a serious conversation with Robbie. So we'll just keep talking about this and see by the end of the month if the government shuts down. We both hope it doesn't, but for two very distinctly different reasons.
See that building back there? Shut down. Oh, there it is. All right, next up, President Trump says he will be designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. We can't wait to discuss that. Stick with us. President Trump announced last night that he would be designating Antifa as a terrorist organization.
Now, Antifa is a far-left activist movement that proclaims to be anti-fascist, and some of its members have partaken in violence. The movement is said to be highly decentralized.
President Trump wrote on Truth Social, quote, "I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I'm designating Antifa, a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster, as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter."
Now, President Trump hinted Sunday that he would be investigating left-wing groups after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Let's listen.
And when you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burnings all over the place, that's the left, that's not the right.
Do you plan on investigating?
We'll see. We'll be announcing. They're already under investigation. They're already under major investigation. A lot of the people that you would traditionally say are on the left.
They're already under investigation?
Already under investigation.
Many conservatives praised Trump for the move on X. Senator Mike Lee, for instance, wrote, "Antifa is like a group of arsonists masquerading as firefighters. Thank you, President Trump, for designating Antifa as a major terrorist organization." And Billboard Chris weighed in, writing, "All the credit in the world belongs to Mr. Andy Ngo, who's consistently exposed Antifa and educated the world about these terrorists. And Andy has had to move from his home, also suffered injuries after being attacked by them, but he's never backed down."
Meanwhile, some on the left have sounded the alarm. Streamer Hassan Piker wrote, "They're openly admitting they're fascist, by the way." An author and former U.S. Navy Senior Chief Petty Officer Malcolm Nance wrote, quote, "Terrorism expert here. You cannot designate an idea as a terrorist group. There is no organization called Antifa. There is no leadership or funding path. There is no membership. Also, there is no law in America to charge terrorism. Ask Luigi." What he is doing is setting the stage to designate any American as a terrorist. That's fascism. Release the Epstein files. The hashtag at the end.
Malcolm Nance is an utterly ridiculous person. There are certainly laws against terrorism. So
Well, I think,
sure.
and what
Luigi Mangione, they dropped the state terrorism charge. They're also,
Right.
but there is such a thing as a terrorism charge, and there are federal charges. So I don't know what he's talking about there.
Fine, I don't know what he's talking about there, but I do know that in the last few weeks,
the other guy has called for his political enemies to be killed. So.
Okay,
Go
well,
ahead.
I'm just going to speak for Lindsey.
Yes, you
yeah,
speak
so
for
I,
Lindsey.
I think that what he's referring to, or what everyone might be referring to, who has some outrage about this, is the fact that in recent weeks, President Trump has used the guise or the word of terrorism in order to do things that would usually require some congressional approval to make sense, that he's using, like, say, an executive order privilege to do, like the Venezuela ships that were bombed twice, because instead of being counter-narcotics mission, he called them counterterrorism missions, and that allows different privileges to the president, which they didn't need to be. These people could have been arrested. And so when you're talking about Antifa, Trump's previous FBI director, Christopher Wray, actually said Antifa is an ideology. You cannot prosecute an organization if it's not an organization. That's an ideology. So where do you go? Like, you know, when you're actually looking at Hamas or an organization, there's a structural hierarchy that you can actually prosecute. Who are you prosecuting in Antifa? The bad actors have been arrested, should always be arrested. But, like, there's no organization that's getting funding that needs to get structure. So
Right.
it's, you know, that needs to get prosecuted. So it's kind of just like this idea that you're throwing out there that, to me, the ultimate goal there then is just division and divisiveness, because it's a dialogue, again, to continue to repeat what we're hearing, that everyone on the left is a murderer.
I agree with you in part and disagree in another part. So it is broadly correct that Antifa is not particularly an organization, or primarily an organization. It has no hierarchy. There's no leader of Antifa. It doesn't have meetings. It's not an organization in the same way Hamas or something is an organization. It's not even the same.
Al-Qaeda.
It's not even an organization in the same way that whatever other lefty groups you can point to. It doesn't have funding. That said, so I describe Antifa as a set of tactics, including the black bloc. So they go to protests, they're all wearing black, they have face masks, someone commits violence, and then you can't tell who it is because there's a lot of people who look alike, and they blend back into the crowd and they disperse quickly. They are distinguished, their tactics distinguish them from other left-wing people in that they believe affirmatively in the use of violence to achieve their ends, violence and property destruction. They don't want coverage by journalists. They have attacked journalists. They've attacked Andy Ngo, that person who's done so much to report on their activities. There are certainly people associated with Antifa, so you certainly could take greater steps as law enforcement to say who are the Antifa involved.
And President Trump seems to allude to that. He said he has. I am looking at people already.
Everyone
right?
should be prosecuted for. These people throw milkshakes in people's faces. They punch everyone they think are Nazis. And my major criticism of them is, I think it's wrong to practice violence against your political opponents, and they also take a broad view over who counts as a Nazi, like not actually just Nazis, but everyone who disagrees with them. I've seen them. I've seen them in the streets of D.C. In response to the George Floyd stuff. I've seen them smashing windows.
I know, but we're talking about, again, criminals.
We're
talking about criminals, and President Trump is trying to pin it on the left and saying that Democrats
are left.
need to be okay. But on the right, like if we talk about the same ideologies and say, okay, there are people committing bad acts. Like Dylan Roof was online with a group of people that would be considered far right, that were racist, saying that the Great Replacement Theory is the reason why he wanted to go kill people that were of color.
Talking about the Great Replacement Theory are not committing violence.
Well, then Dylan Roof committed the violence. That's what I'm saying. So then President Trump.
Is there anyone on earth saying don't prosecute Dylan Roof?
No, but then President Trump. President Trump should also say, let's look at terrorist organizations that promote this type of violence, right? Because we're looking at the structure of Antifa. Saying
Antifa is not promoting this kind of violence. They are engaging in this kind of violence.
Fine, but that's not the only incident where people have been in conversation with people that have ignited a flame of somebody who's doing an act on the right because they feel like they're being replaced or something like that. We've
What
had
I'm saying
this
is, I'm
dialogue.
saying Antifa is actually doing the violence, and that's what we're going to
Right,
prosecute.
but both ends should be prosecuted. That's why he's trying to find a moment of grief
anyone
for Charlie
engaging-
Kirk and saying, let's only look at the left. And that's the biggest problem for me, kind of like what I talked about in my lens. Like, there are reasons to look about why anybody who's igniting the flames to violence like this should be looked into
Again,
on this
not
long list that he
igniting
has.
the flames, actually doing it.
Committing-
I would agree with you.
We just
on
had
the,
Minnesota lawmakers killed. So yes, the same thing. Anybody who they were in conversation with in an organization similar to Antifa on the right
saying,
should be looked
but
into.
Antifa is not a group inspiring other people to commit violence through their rhetoric. Antifa, by the definition of what Antifa is the people engaging in the violence.
Right, but
And
then
they should
who
all be
congregates to say
prosecuted.
they're all in one group and not just random criminals? Like, that's what I'm saying. There has to be some type of organization. They're deciding how they're going to
distinguished
behave.
from random criminals in the way that they dress and the political ideology that they have.
So if a random person puts on a mask, now they're definitely Antifa. That's what I'm saying. That just doesn't.
Well, I mean, kind of, because Antifa is not an organization. It's a method of
Which is
carrying out
why you can't call it a
social
terrorism
change.
group and pin it on the left and say, I'm going to go through all
I
these
don't really want to
changes.
call anything a terrorist group because terrorist group is sort of a nebulous definition, and I don't understand what the government is. I mean, I was reading, we were arguing about this yesterday or the day before, the statute under which Mangione was charged, and the judge says, no, this doesn't meet the definition of terrorism according to the statute.
He didn't
it
cause
absolutely
American
meets the definition
instability.
of terrorism in accordance with the statute. Well, yes, he's causing instability. He's threatening the other CEOs of healthcare companies. He's saying the people
No,
who
I'm saying
support
the
these
judge
policies
said that
should
he
fear
didn't
for their
cause,
lives.
Yeah, he didn't cause. Like,
Yeah, the judge is full of something.
because you think the judge maybe also has.
No,
some
I know. I
Are
think
you
the
going
judge
down that
is-
rabbit hole?
No, I don't know. Maybe the judge is a little Luigi Mangione fangirl too. I think the decision was baffling.
Well, it started with a search for answers, but it became a shouting match. Here are some of the heated exchanges in this week's Kash Patel hearings. Stay with us.
Heated debates taking over Capitol Hill this week. FBI Director Kash Patel has become the first prominent Justice Department official testifying to Congress since the growing outrage over the Epstein files handling.
The House Judiciary Committee demanding to know why names in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged black book and other files are remaining sealed. It didn't take long before the hearing turned into a shouting match between lawmakers and Patel. Just listen to this heated exchange between Jamie Raskin and Patel.
That's what we're working with.
Well, wait, have you released all of the stuff that the FBI has seized from Epstein's house? The computers, the emails, the file cabinets, the documents? What about the financial records? Have you released all of that?
Everything the court has allowed us to
Which
release.
court are you talking about?
3 separate federal courts have come in and said...
We're talking about the evidence you've got. It's got nothing to do with what those courts have.
Do you have any
We're talking
idea
about
how the
evidence-
law works?
Wait.
Do you want me to break the law in a federal judge's order?
No,
to
I want you to
satisfy
follow your own
curiosity?
word, Director Patel. You said up there it was under the direct control of the FBI director. He had the black book.
Everything
Have you
I
released-
have direct control over, we have gone to court. You haven't.
Was a similar story with Congressman Eric Swalwell when he brought up Patel's book calling government officials government gangsters. Take a listen.
Considering that you have identified these people as, quote, government gangsters, will you recuse yourself from making any investigation decisions about these individuals?
Anyone that has been terminated at the FBI has been done so
the
because
question
they failed
again.
to meet the muster and
Director,
their constitutional
I will
obligation.
work on the
No.
audio-visual capabilities.
I'm
of
going to
the folks
borrow
that
your
can hear me.
terminology and call
My
on your
time.
entire career in
I'm
Congress.
reclaiming my time,
It has been
Director.
a disgrace to the American
Director, I'm
people.
reclaiming my
You
time.
can reclaim your
Will you
time all you
recuse
want.
yourself?
Mr. Chairman, you're going to allow a witness to speak this way?
Mr. Chairman, would
Will
you
you
give...
recuse yourself, Director?
The gentleman has no time.
Mr.
Chairman, would you
Mr.
admonish the
Chairman, point of-
witness not to insult members?
Trump's name was also frequently coming up in the questioning, but Patel testified he did not know how many times the president's name appeared in the files, but that there are no pictures of Trump with girls of a, quote, uncertain age, and that Trump was never an FBI informant during the Epstein case. Releasing all of the Epstein files has been a bipartisan push, as even some Republicans are looking for full transparency into the sex offenders' accomplices. Yeah, lots of testy exchanges there. Well, in the one with Jamie Raskin, though, he's saying that I'm giving you everything. Their courts have to allow me to release files, so what do you want from me?
Okay, well,
he supposed
as
to do?
Politico reporter, Kyle Cheney put it, because I read this beautiful article about why that's not true. So Kash Patel is suggesting falsely that court orders denying the release of Epstein grand jury materials is somehow tying his hands on releasing the documents in custody of the FBI. The courts made clear that the FBI and DOJ can release their own files. So it's just untrue. So this is what I'm saying. We're watching this play out, and I know that this is political theater, right? So for all of the House members and all of the Senate members, they can take these clips and put them on social media and get some traction from their base and their voters and say, here's what I'm doing to fight justice. And Kash Patel's not giving any real answers, and so we're not coming to any real conclusions. But there are people that are actually their constituents and the American public, because there's been many polls, that actually just want to understand what happened here and what may or may not be in the government's possession and why it feels so dicey on what they're sharing or not sharing. Now, Raskin actually has a point asking him to release that stuff, because Kash Patel himself has been on multiple podcasts saying and referencing this black book in the past before he was the director, and specifically calling on the director to do more or get fired. And these are things that he's been saying and going around about how much information they have on the Epstein file. Then he gets in the role, and now he's doing a complete 180. And so to be critical of him is nothing but fair.
Okay. Look, no one will ever be satisfied with any amount of disclosure on this topic.
He said, did you release financial information? Like, so he's up there lying because he knows that he can do way more than he's done, and he's not answering questions.
All
and
right,
that
you
should
say
just
this news article says he can release the documents. He says he can't because the judge won't let him, or that he's had to go to judges to get permission to release things. I mean, that going to judge to get the permission to release things is a component of this, because that's why the victims who were at that press conference can't just say who they were victimized by, because they have settlements where they got millions of dollars, and so they agreed never to name names. So you got to have a judge revise that. So there is some waiting for the legal system to say, you can say the things they already know. We don't even need to go to documents. We have primary sources who won't speak because they traded that away for money.
No one understands how Kash Patel, the FBI director, has so little intel and information. It's literally your job to have intel and information. I mean, he says that he never spoke to Trump about the Epstein files. That you believe that statement, that is just a lie. So we are sitting here just watching people just lie and not give information, and people are really just asking for plain answers. Whether you're in the MAGA base and wanted this for the longest time, whether you're a Democrat who thinks this is a political opportunity, or whether you are an American citizen who just wants transparency, why is it okay for Kash Patel to sit up there and be vague and not answer people, and then get so defensive when people ask him questions that he's coming at everybody's next, calling them names and like, what like that's your response?
You wrote a book saying you wanted to, there's too many FBI agents and you want to fire some of them. Will you recuse yourself from firing FBI agents? Come on. It's ridiculous.
He's doing his job. He's asking
Eric
questions.
Swalwell.
Everyone is up there asking questions like they're supposed to be. They feel like these are the most burning questions from their constituents and as congressional members. And even though some of it is a political circus, Kash Patel has one job: answer the questions. And if it's
one job, release the Epstein files?
No, one job, answer the questions about that. There's plenty of things we talked about. One job, answer about why your response to Charlie Kirk's death was so disastrous. One job, answer if any of these firings in the FBI were political in nature.
Kash Patel?
What did he say?
What did he say? What's the Charlie Kirk thing?
His response was all over the place with like, oh my God, we have information, we have the killer, and it's like, no, we don't have, people wanted answers. Like, so he has one job to answer. Like, at these hearings, they were like, why are you so all over the place? I know, but he said we have somebody in custody like twice. It was incorrect.
Well, one of those people is being charged with obstructing the process because he said like he hopes the killer gets away, and I think I also read that he had child porn. So
what's wrong with waiting until we're sure, though? What's wrong with waiting until we're sure?
They got a guy.
But what's wrong with waiting until we're sure? Besides trying to be first and wrong, as a journalist, that's the first thing that I learned. If you want to be first and in a rush, just be right at least.
He said we have someone in custody.
Yes, he's just in a rush to. Oh my God, we got somebody else. Like people, it's not only that Democrats or Republicans are mad about this. A lot of people are confused about his response to Charlie Kirk and asked him about it. A lot of people are confused about his response to the Epstein files and asked him about it. A lot of people asked him about whether FBI recent firings were political in nature, and he's not giving real answers to any of these. He's getting defensive and trying to find jabs to tell people why they're insignificant or insufficient in their roles. And that may be fine, and both things could be true, but he also should just answer the question. He's literally having a hearing to get answers for constituents and for the American public that has questions that they think are important to get answered. So why does he not give real answers to any
They
of
don't want answers. They want to politically grandstand and clip it for their own social media networks. They don't care. These hearings are always totally pointless.
But say that the answer that comes out answers somebody at home's question, then what is wrong with him answering any questions. And also, you have way more leniency for him, for somebody who looks at him and Pam Bondi as the two most significant reasons about why MAGA base is so riled up about these Epstein files. So where's all this new leniency coming from when we were all talking about this and you got me on board with why we should look into these Epstein files in the first place? And now I'm all involved and you're like,
Democrats convince themselves
I'm done.
It's bad for Trump.
So he doesn't have any responsibility based on what he's been saying the last year to follow up with those statements that he said and are documented.
I don't know how many times I can say it. I favor transparency. I just don't think people will ever be happy because the information they're looking for doesn't exist. It's not true that Donald Trump abused underage girls, and you'll never find that evidence. That's all Democrats want. It doesn't exist because it didn't happen.
No, I think Democrats are supposed to also be on that list.
Satisfied
and so they just want to know who's on the list.
That the Clintons didn't commit sexual misconduct, or Obama, or whoever. They just wanted, both sides just wanted to score political points by humiliating their enemies, and there's not any humiliating information on their enemies. There might be some humiliating stuff on random businessmen or celebrities or people
who donate lots of millions of dollars to political campaigns and people. And so what's wrong with them being reviewed if they are attached to this in any way?
Tell us.
Yeah, we should know.
Those women who keep saying, well, I'll tell you later, just tell us now. Give back the money and tell us. They don't want to do that, do they? Why don't we put together some money?
I'm not going to go down the path of victim shaming with you.
And we can replace their settlement money, and we can collect some money. Okay, here, we'll give you this money, and so you can forfeit your settlement, and then you can tell us who did this to you.
Or the government can do its job and explain why there seems to be some type of cover-up happening because people seem confused about why Ghislaine Maxwell now is in a minimum security prison, and there are lots of things going on that look unsavory, and when you see smoke, it may be fire nearby, and these are questions that need answers, and Kash Patel is not equipped to answer them, clearly.
Okay. Coming up after nearly 50 years, Ben and Jerry's will no longer have Jerry, just Ben. What the ice cream company's co-founder is leaving, and also leveling accusations of censorship against their owners. Interesting.
Yesterday saw a viral back and forth exchange between Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina and Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Now it goes back to comments Omar made the day after Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Omar was critical of Kirk, accusing him of downplaying the death of George Floyd, and she accused Nancy Mace of, quote, harassing people that she finds inferior, which led to this post from Mace on X. Quote, Ilhan Omar said it herself, actions have consequences, time to live by it. We filed a resolution to censure her and strip her committee assignments. If you celebrate murder, maybe Somalia can take you back.
Now, Mace's comments, of course, did not sit well with Omar, who fired back, writing, quote, I know you aren't well or smart, but I hope someone can explain to you that there isn't a correlation between my committee assignments and deportation. Regardless of what you do with these committees, my office will continue to be next to you, and I will continue to be in Congress.
The resolution for Mace to censure Omar did make it to the House floor on Wednesday. It was rejected by a vote of 214 to 213. That included 4 Republicans siding with Democrats to table the measure. This morning, Omar wrote, 4 Republicans didn't join Democrats to protect me. They joined to defend the First Amendment and sanity. No one should be going after them. This country stands for freedom, and right now what people are doing is totally unacceptable. I believe Ilhan Omar also said that Nancy Mace belongs in a mental
She did,
hospital.
And Don Lemon was like following her around. She said that you're mentally unwell, and like, yeah, they got into it. But like when you default to a racist statement, like telling somebody to go back to where they're from, like you always say, people are expected to respond. Like you can't be Cory Booker and they're screaming at somebody in a hearing and expect them not to respond. We just talked about this week. You're tweeting something
back to where you're from necessarily a racist statement.
Yeah, because Omar came here as a child who fled a civil war in Somalia as a refugee, and our country accepts that, and so she's here, and she's now an American citizen in Congress, and sending her back to where she's from. What does that have to do with your being?
If you told me go back to Italy or Germany, that would be a racist statement.
If your family's from there, Robert, we haven't talked about that. I think, why am I doing that? Why am I telling you you're an American citizen and you should be proud of that, especially if you're a congressperson. She should be especially proud. And I think particularly when you pin it on brown people, it's saying that this country makes you othered and that this is a white country.
That's what I'm getting at. It's racist depending on who you're saying it about.
No, I wouldn't want somebody to say that to you either. I would fight for your honor, but I wouldn't call it racism because I don't think that the person who thinks that this is their country is generally not the people of color who've been berated historically. Well, it's people who are not of color. Europeans who came in here and colonized and telling other people they don't belong here. So that's the problem about why I wouldn't think it'd be racist to you, but I still would defend your honor because you're my friend and tell somebody he's an American, right? Like, that's just that simple.
Well, what people in the MAGA world or conservatives don't like about Ilhan Omar is that she evinces a dislike for America and that comes across to many conservatives as, well, if you dislike all of our principles and you hate this country so much, why would you came here, this country welcomed you, gives you opportunities, has elevated you to a status of member of Congress, and you show so much dislike of it, maybe you should be back in. You seem like you would be happier in Somalia by your own words, is why conservatives don't like her.
Omar called Charlie Kirk's death mortifying. That's a quote. She used that word. So again, when you're saying that when people are making blanket statements saying Democrats are wishing death or the party of murder, that doesn't apply to somebody who you want to kick out of the country. That doesn't apply to Omar. That doesn't apply to her in any way. She literally has acknowledged this as a tragedy that's horrific. And she also can have two thoughts at once. She's also saying, I don't agree with some of the things that Charlie Kirk is saying. That's the same thing President Obama said. That's fine. That was his whole entire premise. Don't agree with me. Come to the table.
For calling George Floyd a scumbag. We can't say
right, because
anything bad.
Technically, let's talk about it. Technically, he should be fired from his job at Turning Points because he's calling somebody who died scumbag, and for no reason, when we understand that no matter what.
It's not for no reason. It's because of George Floyd's history of numerous run-ins with the law, including threatening a woman with a knife, I believe.
I don't know if that to be true, but I know that he used drugs, and that still doesn't equate to somebody belonging or needing to die because they use drugs.
No,
and so
I didn't say deserve to die. Said that defended comments.
Right, but Republicans are now saying that people.
At no point did I say.
Right, but Republicans are now saying the things that you do or say after somebody. Yes, so what's the sainthood of Charlie Kirk? People are questioning that. It's the fact that he had great ideas to some people.
Charlie Kirk committed any violent crimes?
He had great ideas to some people. He said things that were important to some people, and some people disagree with a lot of what he said. But also, some people didn't. No one agreed with his death, is what I'm saying. So George Floyd should be the same thing.
The left thinks saying things they don't like is a greater personality flaw than
No, I don't think
crime.
they should be conflated. Charlie Kirk didn't deserve to die. George Floyd didn't deserve to die. And if you can't understand that simple concept, and so for anybody to be criticizing George Floyd and saying, giving reasons about why he maybe should have died because he wasn't the best of us, that is not a good argument, and they should lose their job based on what Republicans are asking right now about censorship.
Okay, I don't think anybody should lose their job for saying bad things about either. I don't.
Someone doesn't have to be a saint to not be killed by the police.
I agree.
Somebody does not need to be a saint to not be killed by a police.
I agree.
So what he did was have a fake $20 bill that doesn't deserve killing by police in any training that I've seen or heard from my family members that are police officers.
I have never at any point said that he deserved to be killed or that he should have been killed, and
Derek Chauvin was in the wrong.
I have never said otherwise.
And Charlie Kirk said otherwise.
And I disagree with him.
Right, and so people can debate that all day. Neither deserve to die.
He said that having called out George Floyd as a less than perfect individual is some kind of thought crime.
Less than perfect individuals don't deserve to die.
Well, now we're arguing past each other. I'm not disputing that at all.
That's what I'm saying. So why does that come up in a moment where we're
Omar
criticizing?
brought that up as a negative thing that Charlie Kirk did, that he impugned George Floyd's character. But George Floyd's character is...
But why can't Omar have that thought without being ridiculed to be kicked out of the country
can have the
by another Congress member?
Criticizing her for it. She's not going to get kicked
That's
out
what
of
I'm
the country.
saying. Like this is the first thought that comes to Nancy Mace's mind is you get out of the country because you have a thought and a criticism, something that Charlie Kirk did often. He criticized multiple ideas and institutions, which is okay.
Ilhan Omar gets out of the country and she takes Nancy Mace with her.
Both of them.
Fair enough. Can we compromise on that?
No. But I do want Congress to be
Nancy
more
Mace
effective, right? This happening is foolish, and I think that anybody could see there could be debate.
Let's send them on a girls' trip to Somalia or anywhere, honestly.
And they just figure it out and how to be friends and how to have a conversation. Because the dialogue should continue, right? The dialogue that we were having from Charlie Kirk and from Ilhan, Omar should continue because people have different ideas and we should duke it out in Congress, not with violence. And that should be what they're both talking about right now, especially just a week out from a tragic killing like we saw. And that's my bigger point, is that Congress is failing us. And I would wish that they could all behave like adults and not have other people be more adult-like than our leadership in this country.
Why would they behave like adults when behaving like children gets them more attention, which is what they want? Certainly what Nancy Mace wants.
Well, she got it.
She's not a big, she's not super popular with MAGA right now, honestly. I think a lot of people, a lot of conservatives I know find her antics somewhat irritating.
Oh, no, don't get me started, because she cried about women involved in these Epstein cases.
She cries about everything.
Okay, but why? So that's when she started getting on people's nerves. When she started siding, with the victims of Epstein, then MAGA stopped liking her. Why is MAGA not liking Marjorie Taylor Greene?
No, that goes to show you the difference. MAGA loves Marjorie Taylor Greene. I really like Marjorie Taylor Greene as well.
Tell me what you don't without getting yourself in trouble. What is the deal? What's your beef with Nancy Mace? Tell me.
I don't have a personal beef with her.
But what's the problem that why does MAGA not like her? What's MAGA's
I think she's found to be a tad theatrical, extremely attention-seeking, extremely, it's all about her. And she did she's accused numerous people, including an ex-boyfriend or fiance of hers, of abuse, but she did it in the halls of Congress.
She's protected.
So she's protected, and I find that a very suspicious thing to do. To not invite defamation lawsuits against yourself for those kind of claims, to shield yourself in that way, to get a unique protection. That protection is supposed to be so that our Congresspeople can debate public issues without worrying about that kind of thing, a dome of absolute free speech, which I support, to use that protection to exact some kind of personal campaign against those you think who have wronged you in a totally not having to do with public policy sort of way, I find deeply
Omar
suspicious.
said maybe that's why Omar alluded to her having to need to maybe see a therapist.
Yeah.
So maybe you agree with Omar here.
Therapy can be a very good thing for many people. No, I think my girls' trip idea is the best. Go away and have fun, and we'll be back with more to talk about on Rising right after this. Jerry Greenfield, one of the co-founders of the popular ice cream company Ben & Jerry's, has announced he's leaving the company after 47 years. He says the reason for his departure is that the company is being silenced.
Now, in a statement shared on social media, Greenfield writes, quote, "Standing up for the values of justice, equity, and our shared humanity has never been more important. And yet Ben & Jerry's has been silenced and sidelined for fear of upsetting those in power. It's easy to stand up and speak out when there's nothing at risk. The real test of values is when times are challenging and you have something to lose."
Ben & Jerry's has a long history of taking vocal stances on progressive issues. Some of those stances created tension with Unilever, which bought Ben & Jerry's in the year 2000 for more than $300 million. That tension led the company to create the website freebenandjerrys.com. Co-founder Ben Cohen shared this video last week.
Ben & Jerry's has been trying to speak out to support the student protesters. They wouldn't let us do that. We've been trying to speak out against the genocide in Gaza. They wouldn't let us do that. We've been trying to speak out for racial justice. They silenced us on that. So they're ripping the heart out of Ben & Jerry's.
So,
guess you shouldn't have taken the $300 million then.
I'll say that at the end of the day, I'm a businesswoman, and I think, Unilever bought the company 25 years ago. I don't know how many times leadership has changed at Unilever since then, but they made an agreement with them, because I was reading into this, and I'm like, how did we get here? Like, do you still have ownership? No, they sold the company and still were involved as employees, and they basically agreed that they were going to give them independence in a way that they could speak specifically to social justice issues. Maybe in 2020, it was profitable for a company to be able to speak like that, and now it's not for Unilever. And as a business, they're kind of like, look, we're just changing the direction because this is not profitable for us anymore for a ice cream company to take a political stance. I don't feel that is the right thing to do. Ben & Jerry's has decided to be vocal about this and has always done that, and has a history of the company being an extreme success, even with the owners, Ben & Jerry, taking such dramatic stances.
Right.
And the actual Twitter of Ben & Jerry's forwardly just tweeting out whatever they believe as far as equality and all
they're
those
old
things.
hippies. That's what the company stands for. So it's a little
It's odd to do it, but I don't think that when you sell your company to a business and they verbally agree to something, like either put it on pen and paper and bring them to court, or it's not on pen and paper and you can't.
Right.
You shouldn't be on social media holding up signs saying we can't do this anymore. Like, it should be written in that contract. Otherwise, it's not real.
I mean, I understand their frustration that their parent company doesn't understand their product whatsoever, because their product is
success.
Ice cream and mixed with left-wing activism. Not a tasty combination for
So delicious. Me and my girl Jamie, I hope she's watching. We just ordered Ben & Jerry's the other day on DoorDash because we were like, oh, let's support a good company with a good cause.
I do like ice cream. I try not to eat it that much because I can't stop myself. I'll eat the whole carton.
So you like Ben & Jerry's? Come on, just if you like it. You don't have to distance yourself from the policy. Do you like Ben & Jerry's?
Genuinely not my favorite kind of ice cream.
What, do you like Cold Stone?
Oh, I love Cold Stone. Oh, there's an ice cream company. I've been going to Cold Stone since I was a wee lad. We would go on a lot of walks to Cold Stone, me and my friends as kids, and I haven't had it in a while. Actually, there is one right by me where I live in the city. Every now and then I've gotten it. It's good.
So tell me,
That's
you
some
don't
good
like
stuff.
when people get silenced, though. So this is appropriate to you that Ben & Jerry feels this way.
I mean,
under a verbal agreement, let's say, that they made with Unilever.
It's complicated because, you don't have free speech rights vis-a-vis your employer. However, I feel for people who are in jobs or positions where they feel like they can't speak out, especially on, it's one thing, like, obviously you can't bash your employer, but to not be able to have a company that's about a social mission and taking stances on issues, and then to have the parent company not understand that about the brand, I think would be very frustrating. So I feel for them in that. On the other hand, as you said, if it's not, they had to have that in writing when you sold the company, that we can still take provocative stances on left-wing issues because that's what we care about. And if it's not, then it's not. So no, I feel for them. That's frustrating, and probably the best thing to do then is they can go start a new left-wing ice cream company.
I'd love to see what it's going to be called. We're going to support you, Ben & Jerry. Well, now I can't speak for Robbie, but I'll be getting that ice cream.
I mean, I won't push it away if it's served to me. That does it for us on Rising Live. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way today. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can listen to podcasts. We'll see you later.